and respected faculty members.
Hello. 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 Hello.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I, V. Mohita,
and I, Shubhra Mahapatra,
welcome all esteemed guests, distinguished speakers, corporate delegates, respected faculty members, and my dear friends to the second panel discussion on the topic, Overcoming the Demand-Supply Gap between the Academics and the Analytics Industry. This panel discussion is part of the third National Business Analytics Conclave of KIIT School of Management on the theme, Industry, Analytics, and Growth in the Next Decade.
I will now like to welcome Dr. Rajan Gupta, Vice President, Research and Analytic Division, Analytica Data Lab. He has 12 plus years of combined experience in research analytical consulting, training and teaching in the field of data science. He has also authored 1 patent, 5 books, and more than 75 research papers in the area of public information systems, data science, technology, and management. He has received prestigious 40 Under 40 Data Scientist Award for 2022 by Analytics India magazine at MLDS 2022. He has done his PhD in Information Systems Analytics from the Department of Computer Science, University of Delhi. He is a triple postgraduate and also the first non-US member of the prestigious Analytics Certification Board, ACB, of Informs USA. He has also been accredited with graduate statistician from the American Statistical Association, ASA.
I would now like to welcome on stage Mr. Rupesh Khare, Global Head, Advanced Data Analytics and AI, ABB. Rupesh is the Global Head for Advanced Analytic and Artificial Intelligence at ABB. Here, he successfully built up a new global practice for analytics and seamlessly scaled it up. He has effectively contributed in carving the footprints in ABB's digital transformation journey and embracing the next generation analytics.
I would now like to welcome on stage Mr. Vivek Tomar, Chief Business Officer, HOP Electric. He has more than 18 years of experience into supporting new business venture, business strategies and execution, cost control profession, OEM manage, etc.
I would now like to welcome on stage Mr. Ravikant Dikshit, Vice President, Technology, Agilix Consulting. Ravikant Dikshit is a technology veteran with over 27 years of deep and vast experience in designing and delivering technology solutions for Fortune 500 businesses.
I will now like to welcome on stage Mr. Gaurav Chawla, Head, India and APAC Business, ITC Infotech. He has more than 24 years of stellar track record in leading and scaling new businesses, managing large outsourcing programs, international BD, and leading global terms. His expertise spans IT sourcing, digital transformation, in taking disruptive technologies to the market. With this, I would like to hand over the forum to the moderator of the session, Mr. Gaurav Chawla, sir.
So I don't need to sit. Thank you. I think I'll take this one. So basically, I don't get to sit. But it's a pleasure being here today. So very good afternoon to everyone here. I hope everyone is awake. Okay, I like that. Okay, so I wanted to start with a question. And this is an old phrase, old in the parlance of our industry, when you have people saying that data is the new oil. How many of you have not heard it? I want a raise of hands. Anybody who hasn't heard the term data is the new oil? You haven't. Okay, we have one. Okay. 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. 6. Okay. So I think we will probably have to address that gap somewhere in the conversation. But we'll spend some time on that, guys. For the others that do understand what this statement means, is that data is everywhere and it's a natural resource for us to mine in the days and years ahead. So if data is the new oil, how do you refine it? Analytics is probably that refinery. You analyze the data and you refine it using analytics. But if analytics is the refinery, then AI is the new internal combustion engine. Because the internal combustion engine, which powered automobiles in the last century, is going to drive innovation, growth, prosperity for us in the coming decades. So that's something that I'd like you to think about, that if data being the oil, analytics is the refinery, and AI is the new IC engine or the automobile, because the automobile drove progress and growth in the last century. So how's that for a context? Now, once we've done that, I would like to say that this whole session is to kind of try and understand if how do we derive meaning and insight from this data, and what is it that the industry and academia need to do in order to make this a success for everyone concerned. So without further ado, I'll talk to you a little bit about what today's session is going to be. We would like it to be interactive, but the format doesn't allow that till the very end. But I'd like you to kind of listen up and hold on to your thoughts and bring them up in the Q&A. Now, one of the things that we as industry professionals, now I've been in the IT industry for the last 2.5 decades. One of the aspects that worries us most in the tech industry is that lack of skills, or lack of the right skills, lack of the right kind of resources available to deliver on projects that we've signed up for. And a part of that challenge is quelled by industry experts who reskill themselves, but a large part of that is filled in by academia. Young people like you who pass out of college and come and join these new areas and contribute there and build your careers in that. So that's the focus of the conversation today. We'll look at how academia, how industry can come together to bridge this gap, this huge imbalance that exists. We'll look at aspects on what is expected from you as you graduate, and what is expected from academia, and indeed from us as industry as well. What is it that we can do? We'll talk about ideas and approaches on how we can drive this to be the next big thing for us. So having said that, quick introductions from the group at hand. I'll call upon Dr. Rajan Gupta. Rajan, an introduction and your thoughts on the topic at hand.
Thank you, Gaurav. It's audible?
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. A very warm welcome to all the attendees to this event. I think it's wonderful to hear everyone. So I am Rajan Gupta. I am heading the Research and Analytics Division at Analytica Data Lab, which is a contextual platform and skilling organization for the past 10 years. We have a flagship product called as Leaps, which is used for learning and skilling in data science, as well as for workbench capabilities. That means enterprises can upload their data sets, can use pre-existing models to find out solutions to their problems, to collaborate with each other in their organizations, to come up with the right models and the right techniques to be applied onto their business problems. So that's the platform which we have developed Leaps over the past 3 years now. All the organizations is 10 years old, but we have sizable traction in the market. We are getting good response with respect to the usage of analytical product into the organizational setup. And one key thing over here is that this platform does not depend on the coding capabilities of the individuals. I have been hearing a lot of questions around this, that coding and no coding, or is that a prerequisite? No, absolutely not at all. We are eliminating that, and that is why we are bringing the analytical world much closer to the aspirants, much closer to the domain people, because it's the domain people who will drive the business. That is a key thing that we need to understand. Now coming back to the theme of this panel discussion, which is the academia industry gap, and that is what we have always been hearing for. And it's not just for analytics, it's for every domain, every industry, every job role that you talk about. But I'll talk specifically about analytics, that why this gap has emerged. And we all need to understand that, a couple of decades ago, it was all about IT revolution that happened. Today, you think of any business scenario in any vertical, any domain, any functional area, you'll find a mobile application, a solution, a platform which is available, a portal which is available, a web solution that is available. Now, what does that mean? That means you have digitized virtually every business process. You have virtually digitized every asset that's available inside the organization. And when you go for the digitization of any business processes and any assets in the organization, the only thing that you'll come up with more and more data. So that's the essence that we have seen that has emerged in the past 2 decades or so, where due to digitization, a lot of data has emerged. And once the data has started to emerge at such a rapid pace, which, if you compare with some of the reports, they'll say that the data that was generated in last 100 years probably is getting generated in a month's time. And that's the power of digitization that has happened, maybe through social media platforms, maybe through web portals that we are using for retail purposes, healthcare purposes, or transportation purposes. So the kind of data that is getting generated at such a fast pace requires a lot of professionals to solve the problems around that data, to solve the business problems which are dependent on that data. That is why we see the pace at which the data is growing, the pace at which the businesses are getting dependent on data. We are not able to produce the professionals required to match that pace. And that is why the gap between academia and industry is visible in the space of analytics. And we need to acknowledge that. We need to acknowledge in the sense that we know that in every other report we see that there are 100,000 vacancies available across analytics space. We understand that there are 200,000 analyst profiles or data scientist profile or data engineer profile that are there. But are we gearing up ourselves to fulfill those demands? Probably that is where we are a bit slow in supplying the manpower. And that is where, that is why I would probably say that the speed of data generation is killing the supply part, and that is where we are struggling.
Absolutely. And I think that would probably talk to you about the quantity of data that's being generated every single minute. In addition to, your phones, social media, there are IoT sensors everywhere as well. And each one of these is data points that can be exploited by using analytical techniques, of course. Now, I'll want to call on another practitioner. Oops. Rupesh, Mr. Rupesh Khare.
Okay, good afternoon, guys. First, my submission of gratitude to all of you for having me here and for all selfish motives. Because whenever I come here at events like this, I go back home with a lot of energy. I revisit my past, see myself sitting there someday, and of course some good ideas as well. Introducing myself, I am leading global analytics practice at ABB. We started this practice 5 years before I was the first member of the team who started it. In this 5 years, we took 3 years to get into forming and norming phase of any practice, which is difficult, because when you're starting something new and you in a company like ABB, which is Fortune 300, you have set practices, you have set mindset, you have set culture, and you know when you have a project and you go back to, let's say, your chief marketing officer who has 30 years of experience in the company and he knows nuts and bolts of the company, and you go and say, hey, can we think it differently? And the obvious reaction is a pushback, right? No, don't teach me. And that is the struggle we passed through in ABB. But first 2-3 years, you know, we settled down. We started with, because as I said, the first thing is establishing a practice is to have a cultural change. And what we did, we didn't try to boil the ocean. We pick up very small projects and show them the needle movement. Hey, that analytics can help you. And that is where the mindset change happened. In the last 2 years, we are getting the dividends of that mindset. We are flying high. We started with simple projects on, let's say, visualization. I'm not talking about machine learning, deep learning, artificial intelligence. It was to get the horse to the water. And once they saw we are making sense through data and analytics and the solution, floodgate was open. And now, as a team, we are doing very sophisticated machine learning projects. And the pie of the type of project is changing towards artificial intelligence, which gives me a satisfaction that acceptance is there on the ground, and the business people are accepting what we want to do right. Coming back to the topic, Gaurav, I'll just double click on that word gap. Right?
Absolutely.
There are two components of a gap when we talk about the demand supply. One is the quantity side and one is the quality. That's the only two things can happen. In India, if my overall guess is right, we have around 45,000 universities and colleges producing graduates from engineering, statistics, mathematics, MBAs. Less likely there is a supply gap on the quantity side, because whenever we publish a posting, the inbox is full. The number of applicants, maybe one application versus 200, 300. So that gives me an idea that very less likely there is a quantity gap. If I talk about quality, what Rajan was saying, that positions are lacking, probably because of the quality of the resources. I have an experience in ABB. For one position, we would have interviewed 30-50 candidates and selected none. And that is where the mind goes and gives the alarm that something is not right. The quality of the data scientists, and when I talk about analytics, I make a disclaimer that I'm referring to data science, because analytics is a very misused and abused word. So my reference will be to data science only. And the quality, when I say it's not up to the mark, and when I'm talking to the gap between academia and the industry, the target audience is 0 to 2 years of experience. The freshers, maybe most of you are the freshers, you will have the experience. But majority of them are freshers. And that is where our expectations with them also set, that what are we expecting out of them? A guy who is just out of college, we are expecting some hard skills, which is mathematics, statistics, programming a bit. I'm not very particular about that. And my microscope is mainly on the software side. That is that the software side of being a data scientist is a very big differentiator in your success and failure. We have a lot of focus on harder side, which should be there. I'm not discounting that, but there is there is a need to focus on the software side.
Absolutely. So I think what Rupesh is saying is that let's not focus on numbers alone. Let's focus on quality as well. Quality of the inputs that go into making us as analytics professionals. So there are two aspects to skills, like he mentioned, and he made use of the word hard skills. So there are two types of skills: hard skills and soft skills. Soft skills you guys know enough about, because that is something as part of your management education you were exposed to enough. But having said that, in an industry context, soft skills would also include the ability, not just on the human aspect or the EQ aspects, but also the ability to be able to capture business knowledge and be able to translate that. But because increasingly there is now a role in analytics called the translator, or the business translator, or what is otherwise traditionally referred to as a business analyst. But that role is assuming greater significance. But I will come back to some of those aspects in subsequent question. I'd want Mr. Vivek Tomar to introduce himself first and his opinion on the topic.
Hi, good afternoon, Bhubaneswar, KIIT. It's been an honor to be a part of this conclave and to address the upcoming entrepreneurs, or I would say analytics. And when, in times to come, you would be a part of a lot of good organizations, and probably we would get a chance to work together. The idea today is to come and to share our experiences. It's just to help and to bridge the possible communication if it can assist you guys anyways. So I'm Vivek Tomar. I work as a Chief Business Officer with Hop Electric Mobility. I'm an entrepreneur also. My entrepreneur journey started in 2015. I'm the co-founder of Futures Farm Fresh and Sovi Enterprises, wherein we do a lot of analytics and we give such software application support to upcoming new startup companies. So I'm glad that I'm a part of this forum, because prior to this discussion, the first batch, I was a little skeptical and a little confused that, probably it's too technical. I may not be a part of this. But I'm glad that when it comes to demand supply, I'm somebody who can help to bridge what exactly, as Karishma, one of our fellow colleagues, tried to explain earlier, that when it comes to analytics, data and IT, whatever we do, it's very important to understand the logical reason behind for developing that application. That is very, very important. In these days, we interact with a lot of software application organizations, people, expert. They come up with a different thought process, or I would say different point of views in reference to applications, softwares, algorithm. They always believe to talk about what they are perfect into. However, when it comes to looking at the market, coming from the front side, we have a specific, requirement, or I would say expectations. Let me correlate with one of the examples. We designed one interface application. It's an AI application now for one of the leading battery manufacturer, who were looking forward to a solution to interact with dealers, with the OEMs as well as the customers on the same platform. So they were looking for some sort of solution which can work backward as well as the front-end application. So we used to interact with a lot of organizations, a lot of companies, that what would be the right application, or how should we go about it. So I realized that in a span of almost a month and a half, we took almost 2 months to make other people understand that what we are looking forward to. We were not able to bridge that gap, that what we are looking forward to. So what is really important is that whenever we create or develop any new application, it's very important to understand what is the logical reason, why do we need that? What is the client expectations? What are we actually looking forward to? So when it comes to demand and supply, definitely there is a demand. But what we are getting in supply is, A, B, or C. Probably we're looking forward to something which is a blend of, blend of something which is more interactive to the customer's need. What I would really suggest is that, when it comes to demand and supply, it's very important to understand the first perspective at what we are really looking forward to, what we need to develop. So that we need to focus upon. Second, as Gaurav rightly mentioned that, it's been almost a decade the IT revolution took place. So now we strongly feel that there was a time when there was an industrialization. So the need was roti, kapda and makan. Most of our parents used to work for companies for decades. They spent their entire life working for a company. And the time came that the information start, getting available on the website or different ways of portal of communication, so that everything would be available like in 2000s times. Now the time is the third kind of revolution, wherein the information is available, but probably the quality information is not available. Like we have got huge data, but what we are really looking forward to is the churning of quality information, which would be help us, or I would say beneficial, to make my customer more focused, and the solution could be more satisfactory. Thank you.
So I think what Vivek was saying is that we need to be able to extract meaningful insights from data. And that's really the crux of the matter, and that's where you guys come in. But I'd like to do a quick raise of hands. I want to bring out something that gets you off your devices and in the conversation again. We've got recruiters here from the traditional IT services space. We've got academia, Dr. Manoj is a published author as well. And we've got Vivek, who's from the startups. So one of the big questions that young minds are looking at is whether a startup or an IT services company. So I want a quick raise of hands. How many for a career? And by the way, we are not recording this. It's just to see what is the sort of take that you have on this. IT services, a large IT services firm working for them in their analytics practice, or with a management consulting firm working in their practice, because these two are related to each other. And as an MBA, once you pass out, you will have the choice of working for either consulting or for IT services, because those are the logical places where analytics has a single largest uptake. Raise of hands for services versus startups. So services, please raise your hands. Okay, so what about startups? The rest? Come on, a little more.
I'm looking forward to questions from this section.
A little more, okay. And the rest? Undecided. But yeah, seriously, what's happening?
That is also important, I'm sorry. Someone who has not decided, probably after this session, they would make up a mind to be a part of a startup or something.
So, and there are some people who choose to move from services to startups and back again, me being a case in point. I've worked with startups before they were so cool. But having said that, it's an important question as to how industry deals with issues. On the one side, you have the services and consulting players dealing with the problem statements of large established organizations, enterprises, as you may put it, who are looking for bringing in this expertise and being able to protect their turf, in being able to grow to the next level. Because data and analytics and AI being what they are today, it's a must-have from a survival perspective for some of these large entrenched enterprises who've been around for hundreds of years. Not hundreds, but maybe 100 years. My last employer was was around for, is still around more than 110 years. But the enterprises that these companies serve, they've been around for much longer. 170 years. Last week I was talking to a client that has been in the business for 170 years. I said, oh, now that's impressive. But the point is that on the other hand, on the flip side, there are startups who are trying to reinvent. They are trying to push the envelope in terms of new ways of solving things, new problems to solve. So that's a decision that you as students should make. It's okay to be undecided, perfectly okay. But that's something that drives you is different in these two contexts. The reason why I just wanted to bring this up is that there are subtle nuances that are expected from each of these, but we'll get into those details later. I'll like Ravi to introduce himself now and his opinion on the topic.
Thank you, Gaurav. I hope I am audible. I have about 7 years of experience, in and around IT. So for about 2 decades or more, I ran pretty large businesses for HCL Technologies. And in my current responsibility, I am the Chief Technology Officer for Regulis Consulting. I am responsible for a platform called Service Maestro, which brings together the service providers and the consumers, both in the B2B as well as the B2B space. So from a topic standpoint, it is a very interesting topic, which I've been thinking right since the first panel discussion. But how do we recognize that there is a gap? So there are 2 ways to look at it. When I look at the analyst reports of how business analytics and the skill gap exists, whether you look at the NASSCOM reports or any of the other analyst reports, be it Gartner, IDC, or whoever else has been publishing, 3-4 years ago, they identified the gap as some 20-30% as the gap between skill and demand. Guess what that report says today? It says it is more than 35%. So if we knew that there is a skill gap, and both in terms of the quantity as well as the quality that existed 5 years ago, and we have only managed to widen it. So there are 2 ways to look at it. One, we have done something really good by which we have increased the demand. And we need to identify, where and which areas this demand is growing. The second part, which is the gap part of it, has actually changed contours. So the gap which was there, let's say 3-4 years ago, is not the same gap as what I would like to associate with from a skill perspective in today's context, or even further when I look at 2 years down the line. So that is a debate which we need to have on a continuous basis to figure out what do we exactly mean by demand. Than be really stuck in the past in terms of associating what the demands, what the gaps were in the past, both in terms of the quality and quantity, and where these gaps are going to be in the future, so as to say. The healthy part, which I think I'm a very optimist person by nature, so I thought, if the gap has increased, it is a good thing, there is something good which the industry has done for themselves by ensuring that whatever was the available capacity from various sources within the country, we have managed to reskill them through our finishing processes in respective companies, and we have served our customers or served our services and platforms or products in our best interest. But perhaps somewhere we also need to look at if the academia is catching up with that or not. So that probably sets the context of the discussion thereafter.
Thanks for that. I think we'll try to dig deeper into the topic now, get into a little more specific in terms of what are the 3 stakeholders that are involved in this whole ecosystem. On one hand, you have industry, the other hand, you have academia, and on the third, which is often neglected, is the students themselves. Now, the ask in order to bridge this gap will be different from different stakeholders because they play different roles in this ecosystem. Now, I'd want the panel to talk a little bit about what is it that they expect from, the finished product that comes in to join organizations, the fresh talent that comes and joins in, because there are a lot of expectations about plug-and-play candidates that can be deployed instantly, which may not be the reality and which is unfair also, I would say. But how do we create that sort of balance between these 3 stakeholders so that we are A, collaborating more effectively and delivering on what the industry really needs, and that drives success for each of these three entities. So first off, I'll want to hear the panel talk about what is it that they expect from academia. Okay, so it's something that would be of interest to the faculty here as to what is it that the industry is looking for. But having said that, it's not just about what is expected of you, but we also do some soul searching and ask ourselves that what is it that we should be giving in return, in exchange. So first off, we'll talk about what is it that industry expects of academia in order to bridge this gap. We've acknowledged that there is a huge gap. There are a million jobs out there, fresh for the taking, data science, in analytics, in AI, but that number doesn't mean anything unless you have something tangible. So first off, I'll ask Dr. Rajan to talk about his opinion on this.
Right. Thank you, Gaurav. I think in the interest of time, can we talk about all three stakeholders together?
You could.
Okay.
I think we could do that, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Thanks. So that's a very relevant question that you have raised, and the three stakeholders that we have, academia, industry, and students. In my opinion, and with respect to, so I think I am the outlier amongst all the stalwarts who are present today, and I have the limited experience of industry and academia both. But I feel more closer to the students from that perspective, and I've created or molded into a framework which I call as rat race framework. Now, let me explain what do we mean by rat race framework and how the expectations around analytics is getting developed. Now, RAT, with respect to acronyms, I'll explain. So, R is being reasonable. Now, all the three stakeholders right now are not getting at that level where we can say that all of them are reasonable, and I'll explain you how. From the industry, you see a lot of job descriptions coming out of the place where the technology was introduced 5 years ago, whereas they are demanding the experience of the aspirants to be 10 years. They are not reasonable at all. From the academia, they are not reasonable with their curriculums. The kind of promises that they are making to the aspirants that you'll become data scientists in 10 months, in 1 year, in 6 months, in just a certification program affiliated to so-and-so university coming up, that's not reasonable. You can't become it. So even after spending 10 or 12 years in the industry, I still feel that I am a beginner. It cannot be promised to anyone in just a matter of 6 months or 12 months or 18 months. You have to define the career path. So there the academia is not reasonable. And third is the student stakeholder. Now, the problem with the current batch is that they are not getting reasonable with the kind of work that they want to do. Starting from day one, as we are seeing, and Mr. Rupesh would also agree, starting from day one, everybody wants to get into the complexity of the models, be it neural networks, be it computer visions. So if I am not working on computer vision, if I am not working on neural networks models, probably I am worthless. I am not doing anything. Whereas industry demands differ a lot from that aspect. We need to understand that modeling is just a small aspect of the entire journey of data science. Probably you need to spend more time on, exploring the data, cleaning the data, preparing the data, and probably thereon you'll work on more, complicated problems. But that is where the, unreasonable expectations are being set by the aspirants, probably due to social media pressures, probably due to YouTube videos that are getting created by anyone out there calling himself as a data scientist, or probably due to the media, the mainstream media, which is calling data scientists as the sexiest job. I mean, that's how you promote the skill sets, but don't make everyone to feel unreasonable. So that's the first dimension of my framework, where I say that all the three stakeholders are not very much reasonable in today's context. The second aspect is the appropriateness. Now, so we need to understand that analytics is a multidisciplinary field where, it is being applicable, and in conjunction with IT, of course, analytics cannot, exist independently. That is one hard fact that all of us should understand. So it is in conjunction with IT, it is being applied to every business domain, every functional area, every vertical, but independently it is nothing. So we need to have appropriate planning with respect to what exactly we want to derive as an outcome to manage the demand that is existing in the in the market right now. So from the academia side, there has to be an appropriate planning with what are the learning outcomes that a student will gain out of a program. What are the teaching methodologies that will help them to achieve those learning outcomes? If that can be managed, yes, we will be able to answer the demands that are there. From the industry side, there has to be an appropriate planning with respect to what is it that is currently required by the client projects, and everything is with respect to client projects. What is the current requirement and what are the future asks that may come up? There has to be a balance in that. You can't hire everyone based on current skill sets without any potential to see future skill sets in the candidates or the aspirants that you are getting. And with respect to students, they need to have very focused mindsets now. They can't be all over the place. They can't be, so as one of the questions came up, can I be an expert of all the domains? No, that cannot happen. You have to be an appropriate planner with respect to your careers where you are focusing on allied things, not on divergent things. You have to be on the convergent track. So that is the appropriate planning that I would expect as a part of academia, industry, and the students. And the third dimension of the rat race is the tools and technologies. Now, that is a very important thing that we are all misaligned right now. I'll give you an example. The industrial demand is, that somebody whom I am hiring should be proficient in Python programming, for example. Academia is preparing a curriculum which is focused on our language, our programming language. So there is a mismatch. And the student, on the other hand, goes through some YouTube videos and goes through some other technical blogs and understands, oh, Go and Julia seems to be a better programming languages for me. There is a misalignment with respect to tools and technologies. Every JD, every job requirement will not have that skills being mapped. Now that's a very hardcore programming examples. With respect to soft skills as well, there is no alignment right now, or rather less alignment right now with respect to the tools and technologies that students are pursuing at the individual level, the academia is preparing in their curriculums, and the industry is demanding right now. So there has to be a proper alignment so that we have the right demand supply being matched. So in my opinion, it's the rat race framework that helps us to align and to bridge that, probably understand the demand supply gap and then take corrective actions.
Oh, excellent example and excellent framework. I think rat race is an acronym that can stay in the mind very easily. So we have to be reasonable in terms of our expectations and be aligned on tools and technologies as well. Rajan, I think great sort of thought process around what is it that it takes. Rupesh, your view on the matter?
Just some extension of what Rajan said. All the three stakeholders, academia, practitioners like us, and students like you, and start with academia. Yes, there is a gap in the syllabus what we teach. I am a data scientist for the last 25 years. I started data science job way back in the late 90s. And that time, the data science means mathematics and statistics. Okay. It does not mean that we didn't program on SAS or SPSS or MATLAB, but majority of the focus was that how the model works. What is the statistics behind, let's say, a simple linear regression model? And the impetus on that is very difficult. I don't know whom to blame to. Perhaps we practitioners who made it sound like this is a programming job. No, this is not a programming job. If you want to be a very successful data scientist, you need to have a strong foundation on your basics, which is statistics and mathematics. Because you should understand that if it is just a matter of inviting some libraries from Python and run it, why do I need talented people like you? Right? I need people like when there is a situation when I need to go back and change my cost function in neural network or maybe a multiple regression model, and he is capable to do it. Right? And that is where the success lies. I prefer you to know just one model, know it thoroughly. Just not that you can run it on program, you can run in R, Python, or any other statistical packages, but focus is very limited on the maths and statistics side, because that's basic. And given the way that this industry changed, you may have an entry in the industry, but if that foundation and the basic is not correct, you will have a limited life, because your competition largely is going to the people who are mathematicians, statisticians, computer science engineers, and they know nuts and bolts behind the models. That's so. I think from the academic side, we should focus more on the statistics and mathematics to know the functions of each model. Coming back to practitioner like us, we tend to be over demanding. I'll be very honest. That's a confession I should make here. That what Rajan is saying, that you are just zero as an experienced fresher, and I expect you to do some very complex work. No, that's really not done. And I share examples with you in ABB. When we hire and my managers come to me and give a feeling of any candidate, and he doesn't know this, he doesn't know that, and I'm talking about freshers. And my question always has been that, like, he's just a fresher. What are you expecting out of him, right? Does he know his basics? And I don't even go to that extent. He knows basics. Can he know basics? I'm ready to teach. Okay. Are you ready to learn? If that message you can give your interviews, that the job is done. Because we know after 25 years that I'm not supposed to expect that you know everything, right? And when you come on the board and join, and your expectation, thanks to the consulting companies, is that give me the data, I want to do high-end modeling, right? And that really is not the situation, because first that what Ajay was saying, if I quantify an entire life cycle of a project in analytics, modeling is just 30%, right? Majority of the time goes in understanding the problem, having the right data, and then the last stage is your journey from analysis to insight, when you do the storytelling. So the expectation from you to do extremely high-end work to begin with is slightly unreasonable. My take is that get something which excites you, spend time there, and if you can communicate a message to your managers that they can depend on you on the work side, you have your success in hand. So that's the expectation setting, I would say, from the student side.
Right. Would you want to talk a little bit more about what is it that industry can do more in order to groom minds at the institutes?
So,
more from a collaboration perspective between industry and academia. So that would be something that the institute would like to hear about.
So from our two things which we have done. One is after when you guys join and we see some experiences, we started at our end. We started having at least 15 days training, which is campus to corporate. We welcome you. We ask you to undergo that training, and the transformation which happens from campus to corporate is very much required. So that's a psyche change we try to do through HR. It takes time, but
The leading question here, and where I'm trying to lead you to, is that is it possible to do programs like this in an outreach mode before they join you?
Yeah, I'm coming to that. So the second thing is which I think through this program and our mentoring, what is important from us to you is to tell you that what we want and what we want on the ground as data scientists. We don't want you to boil the ocean, please. We want simple things from you, and we have a very famous saying in analytics world, which the acronym is KISS, KISS. Keep it simple and straight. Don't oversell yourself, because 90% CVs are fake, and 2 questions we ask and the interview is done, right? And we test your thinking. Understand, this industry is a knowledge industry. This industry where they are testing your thinking. And irrespective, you have very limited statistical knowledge, Python knowledge, doesn't matter. As long as you can convince the interview board that you think differently, you think logically, and your mindset is more solutioning rather than modeling, you are done. Because I have the cases in my career, I ask questions like, what is correlation, right? Simple. And the guy was very wrong. But we didn't stop there. We kept probing. Most probably I'm not listening to his answer also. I'm listening to his approach. I'm seeing that how he addresses the situation. Answer I get on Google these days. I don't care about it. Okay, I care about, I have a situation and how do you approach it. So when we do mentoring, we try to tell you that please keep it simple. Our expectations are very limited, very reasonable for your knowledge, and work on your thinking process.
Sure. So learnability is important, and we'll come to that in a bit. I think from a perspective of what is expected of you, there are various types of roles available in the analytics space, but often they are a confluence of stats, which is mathematics, which he referred to, and IT, which is, of course, some level of IT knowledge, Python or R, and the business context. Now, domain and business are what differentiate you from, let's say, your brethren who are graduating out of BTech courses. So you have the business context because you've studied it for the last 2 years and you've had industry exposure. Now, industry exposure gets very important, and which is where the internships and the summer trainings that you do become extremely important. But when you bring these 3 together, you have a killer combination and you will succeed in most areas in analytics. Now, I'll quickly move on to Vivek for his thoughts on how the 3 can come together in industry, academia, and students, and the expectations.
From the industry point of view, I would like to address the students first that looking at the times in the next 5 to 6 years, I can assure you that one of the biggest industry in India, that is automotive industry, going through a transformation. And that is from ICE operated vehicles to battery operated vehicles. And when it comes, like one of the students asked, and I was very curious to know that regarding Ola, Ather. So all of these new organizations, new companies, they are, when it comes to EV, electric vehicle, it's an amalgamation of technology and IoT platform. So there is a huge scope. So when it comes to automotive, there is going to be a huge demand in the next 5 to 6 years for sure. In fact, if any one of you is interested or probably looking forward to automotive industry and they must have read about EV, there are lots of level policies being drafted and being rolled out. In fact, the Central has already said that by 2030, there would be close to 1,25,000 crore investment into automotive industry. That's going to be a big number. So yes, there is a huge demand. So relaxed, I'm sure that we can do a lot of things in next 5 to 6 years to come. From the academic point of view, that is from the business, like from the market, what we really look forward to to an institute like KIIT is that we would like to request that the students, the next generation engineers, analytics, should be more exposed to practical demonstrations, internships, so that they get to know what they are doing. Theory is definitely important because it plays very important role to lay down the foundation. But please don't construct anything apart from foundation. Let the company do that. Foundation is very, very important. So keep your basics intact. Keep your basics thoroughly done. It's very, very important. Just to learn. In order to learn the entire universe, we tend to lose basics. Let's not do that. So kindly focus on basic things so that students lay down on the foundations quite well.
Yeah, okay. So one of the key points that I picked out from what he mentioned.
I just, one more, sorry.
Yeah, sure.
When it comes to automotive, again, since I'm the part of this industry, so I really would like to stress in that. When it comes to analytics, it is going to play a very, very important role, specifically in IoT platform operated vehicles or some sort of applications. Apart from vehicle, we are also working on, technology-based platform software technologies wherein a lot of supercomputers are getting, in a process to get developed so that the entire, just imagine a world in tomorrow's time wherein you would be tracked by keeping a tap on any damn vehicle. So this is going to be a big, huge love off, which is going to take off in the next 5 to 6 years. So I strongly feel that the time is going to come wherein the technology on wheels you would witness in the next 5 to 6 years. And, all these new organizations like Ather, Ola, they are in a process to, disrupt the existing process, modules, try to create something new. So it's very important to be open. It's very important to have open thoughts, innovative thoughts. There's no harm to have a different opinion about certain things. So please keep your basics absolutely intact. Don't compromise in that. Don't try to cover the entire universe again. That's my only request to all of you.
Thanks. So the point that I picked up, which is very, very relevant here, amongst the basic sort of construct and a lot of points that he brought out, is coming back to internships. The reason why they're useful is because they give you an opportunity to solve real world problems. So try and take that seriously. That's a recommendation from my side as well. And, that goes to the institution as well, to try and make those more productive. These are not, 2-month jaunts that you would want to take, but try and get into a situation where you're solving a real problem, because that is what is going to help you crack those interviews. When you talk about what you did for a company, it might be a small company, it might be a 5-people startup, it might be a 5,000 people services company. But when you've solved a real life problem, that gives you the confidence. It doesn't need to be a huge thing, but it needs to be an end-to-end project that you did. The confidence that it will give you in terms of understanding how things work in the industry, and consequently how you face the interview board, it will be worth its while, it will be worth the effort that you put in, it will be worth the effort that is put in by the institution as well. Let these internships not be the paid internships that you go for summer training and all. Let it be small bite-sized pieces as well. But try to pick up a problem that you solve, and whether it's a paid internship, unpaid, it doesn't matter. Try to pick an opportunity, even if it's with a small local startup. Maybe your uncle's son is setting something up. That's okay. You solved a business problem. You applied analytics to it, and you have something to talk about in your interview. Now, coming back to Ravi, your thoughts, Ravi, before we get into Q&A.
I totally agree to what you just said. So from a gap standpoint, I just want to highlight this fact that business analytics has 2 keywords, business and analytics. So we do a 2x2 matrix where, let's say, you have business on one axis and analytics on the other axis, and say a high or low or Can you plot it? So this is exactly where we stand as students, or so you are continuously on in an assessment mode, whether you focus more on the business side of it, whether you want to specialize on, say, HR, finance, supply chain, marketing, and things like that, or do you want to go deeper into analytics? Because then you get into the data science, probability, statistics, and there's a whole lot of science based on mathematics behind it. Now, from an industry perspective, what happens is I come from a domain and technology axis. So, each industry will have a domain on one axis and the technology on another axis. So clearly, when you match the two, you can see that there are obvious gaps which have not been addressed in due course. From an industry perspective, in the past I was consuming most of the MBA fresh graduates into my business functions, where I would coach them to run my businesses either as in the HR function or finance and accounting function, or in the sales and marketing function, somewhere also in the operations and delivery functions and so on. And then gradually they would pick up the ropes of how to optimize each of these functions in their respective areas. So what the point I'm trying to make is each of these business functions has a kind of specialization, and there are specialized analytics associated with that in terms of the models, in terms of the data sets, in terms of the techniques, and so on and so forth. So that is one stream of career progression or career path that anybody can choose. The other stream, which is a fast evolving field, is the business analytics as a service, and which is where my friends, fellow panelists are coming from, where either the business analytics has been centralized as a function in many organizations because data scientists and data skills are expensive skills, especially for the folks who understand it. So many companies, what they have done is they have centralized this as a function. So there the emphasis is more on the technology domain and the science behind it part of it. The other part is where you are using business analytics as a service. So many of the KPO companies do this. Many other platform companies have also started doing that, where you have to now be in that high quadrant of both high expertise in the business area as well as high expertise in the analytics area. For you to succeed, to be able to really do, obviously there are tools and technologies which are of use to us to make people's life easier. But in case you are looking from a career progression perspective, then do look at where you want to pursue your career, in which direction of either being a business expert or being an analytics expert.
Thanks, Ravi. So I think to wake everyone up again and not to hold back everybody from lunch, there's one quick topic that I'd like to focus on, and I'd like to ask you guys a question. Now, if we are looking at the future, we're looking at how the future of work will transpire to be, because nobody has a crystal ball, but I'm sure as you get into careers yourself, you want to know what the future holds for you. Now, there is a startling revelation I was reading somewhere, and I discovered the fact that back in the day, maybe 20, 30 years back, people used to have one career. I think that came up in the conversation. But in our lifetime, many of us have experienced two careers already, and we are still going, right? We've reinvented ourselves at various points of time in our career. But the way the pace of change is coming along, how many careers do you think you will have as you go into the field? I'd want a raise of hands. How many people think it's just going to be one career, two careers? How many for one? One career? One job? You do that for a living? No, nobody. Two careers? Pretty reasonable? Yeah. I've got a few show of hands. Yeah, you reach a midpoint in your career and you decide, oh, I want to do something different. Excellent. What about three? Okay. Larger number. So I'm not saying go pick up medicine, because that will take you years to pick up. But yeah, 3 careers is pretty reasonable. What about 4? 4 times in your career. Let's say you work 35 years or 40 years, maybe every 10 years you have a change. You could. And potentially, the reason why I brought this up is that be ready for that change. The only skill that will help you in that is learnability. The ability to learn new things. The ability to unlearn. And that's why one of the points that came out in the conversation as well was about learnability, how good the person is able to address the problem. How is he able to solve the problem? I think Rupesh made that point. So learnability is going to be increasingly important in the years ahead. So I think I would want Rajan, if he wants to add to that, one last bit on that before we head into Q&A.
Right. I think learning, unlearning, and relearning would be the mantra for next few decades, as you have rightly pointed out. And to do that, I think at this level, if we talk about the students at KIIT and for any other management student, and the faculties can help in driving that aspect, is giving them exposure to a lot many domains so that they can decide where to learn, where to unlearn, and where to relearn. For example, traditionally MBAs have always been focused on the functional areas, be it HR, be it supply chain, be it operations, be it finance. Now it's time that you also apply those functional areas into domains. For example, in semester 1, you are applying all those functional area projects to healthcare. In semester 2, you are trying to do it on retail and CPG. In third semester, you are working on automobile. In fourth, so these domains can be picked up based on what kind of demand is there in the market. But learning those domains and application of those functional areas will certainly expose the students to understand what does learning and unlearning means, as you have rightly pointed. Because from semester 1 to semester 2, when they'll switch from retail to healthcare or healthcare to they'll understand that we have to get into the skin of each domain, understand what the terminologies are in every domain, understand which KPIs are important in each domain, and that is where I should learn and unlearn what I have learned in my previous semester. I have to unlearn that because the same KPI may be differently behaving in another sector or another domain. So that is where I think in today's context, the faculty can enable the students in getting the right set of domains for them for every semester so that they can apply those functional area knowledge and then come up with the kind of path that they want to choose.
Yeah. Thanks for that. I think we'll head into Q&A. Oh, yes. Absolutely, and I wanted to build that up to an extent that it leads to an awareness in the panel as well as to how that direction could go about. And no doubt KIIT has done wonders in that space. And I don't know enough about it, but whatever every day I hear about it, it's always better than the previous day. So hats off to the institution on that. So head out to Q&A right now. I would want some, oh, there's a raise of hands over there. Yeah, can we pass on the mic? And there's one over there, okay.
Good afternoon, esteemed panelists. So my question is about the distant future. As Dr. Rajan sir mentioned that his company is working in developing tools that takes coding out of the equation, if I'm not wrong. So probably in few years and few decades with AutoML coming in, so will the core concepts like probability, statistics and calculus go out for a toss, and will domain experts be at the forefront of this new digital revolution, and the profile of a data scientist, will it go extinct like nine of those?
Good question, and very forward-looking one at that, and I'm glad you asked that. That ties in with the last point I'd made about the future of work. Nobody knows how things will change, but having seen how things have evolved, this area is not going away anywhere anytime soon, considering the sheer amount of work that needs to be done here. So whereas different phases of human evolution, the industrial revolution had different objectives, this is slightly different. So it's not going away in the next 10 years maybe, but I cannot predict beyond that. And nobody can, in fact. And there can be rapid innovation in a certain space that makes certain aspects of the job redundant. And that is where learnability comes in. So even if I made a tall statement 10 years, it may not be 10 years. 2 years down the line, you have low code, no code platforms taking out the pain of coding. You may not need to code. And the same might be true for, the hard skills aspect when it comes to stats. Maybe you have a calculator that does the, like we used to have the scientific calculators 30 years back, and we used to marvel at them. Wow, it can calculate transforms. But point is that it can happen. So be open to that change and embrace that change. It's a time of great change. I hope I answered, or would Rajan want to take this on, because this is a very interesting question.
Sure. I think it's a very relevant point, and we hear this from a lot of people these days, that a no-code or a low-code kind of an approach would disrupt the data science industry or not. And the answer is that coding or no coding, these are just approaches to problem solving. The core agenda is how do we solve the problem? The problem of, let's say, predicting customer attrition, the problem of employee attrition, the problem of customer churn. I mean, these are the problems that we are focusing on. It doesn't matter that you are solving it through a coding exercise or a no coding exercise. Now, the fundamental that we are trying to bring in with no coding aspect is that the dependency of the businesses on data scientists should reduce, because domain experts understands the key terminologies very well, and that is where they can be the best solution provider or problem solvers. And to them, coding should not be a blocker. It should just go away. They should be given tools through which they should not spend time on learning the coding aspects, but rather spend time on solving the problem and getting that business impact that is required in their organization. So with respect to coding and no coding, it does not really matter unless and until you're solving the problem. And the job of data scientists will never be threatened by the no code approach, because these kind of platforms gets you the contextual machine learning models, or models which are already pre-built, but they again need to be built at the back end. So data scientist's job would not be threatened at all.
Next.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Abhishek. So, considering the present scenario, do you think so the students of present era, especially the freshers, can cope up with the fast evolving analytics?
Okay. Very easy question. The answer is yes. There is no limit to the kind of adaptability that one sees, especially when it comes to human ingenuity. But not talking about that, but seeing people fresh out of college, adaptability quotients are higher than people who have been 30 years in the job. So I don't foresee that to be an issue, but would anyone of the panelists want to also talk about this question?
I'll answer this question and some share to the previous questions answer. Like adaptability is one thing, and I don't see any reason that we can't do it. Though this industry is changing, very frequently is changing, and the question that data scientist role will go off. This question I asked myself 20 years before, 25 years before. I'm still working, and I don't think we have just scratched the surface of the work. So, like the way it's changing, and the way you should adapt to it, that is a flexibility to learn. What they were talking about, learning and unlearning. How frequently and fast you can adapt to new normals in life, and especially in data science context. I'll tell you my example. So I remember around early 2000, I was taking an interview in one of the premier institutes in India, and I asked a simple question: what is data? Okay. At that time, the answer came: the numbers are data. Okay. The same question I asked in another premier institute, maybe 10 years before. The answer came: numbers and text are data. Okay. The same question I asked maybe a year before in a campus interview, and the answer came: the information is data. Information could be number, text, picture, voice, anything. And this is how the industry is changing. Back then, for me, 500 megabytes file wasn't big. Today, we are talking about petabytes. So these changes will happen. Okay, are you geared up to adapt to it? Okay, tomorrow, my guess is that thought process will be a data. Subconscious mind will be data. And that is where we are leading to. Okay, so nothing is going to change. The only thing, the shades are going to change. You know, we have already entered in the premise when the the AI, ML, DL is the part of our life. And I don't think it's going to be. So don't worry about it. Don't stress yourself.
So there's enough and more that's been written about it, that change is the only constant. But if you'd like to read more about it, I wrote a small blog on it a couple of years back, Future of Work. You can check it out on my LinkedIn profile. But the point I have made there is that what are the skills that one needs to succeed in this brave new world? Adaptability, learnability, those are the two key skills. So I think you should always keep that in mind, and it's going to be more and more necessary to survive and excel and to thrive in the new world. There was a lady over there.
Good afternoon, panelists. My question to you is that how do you think academics are playing a major role in redefining the industry's trend?
Could you repeat that?
How do you think the academics are playing a major role in redefining industry's trends?
Okay. I think that's a question for Dr. Dr. Rajan, sorry. Do you want to take that?
Yeah, sure. If I'm understanding it correctly, because the voice was low, how is academics playing the role in?
Major role
Major
in
role?
redefining the industry's trend.
So he himself is an
Coming
author
from,
of
yes, right. So I come with a lot of academic and research background, and then the practitioner side as well. So, I'll quote one example to define how we are, going around the industrial trends and everything. So there are a lot of algorithms that are being developed by, FANG companies. Now, FANG, for all those who are not aware, these are the 5 major Silicon Valley organizations, as we call them, as Facebook, Apple, and Netflix, and Google's, and all. Now, all the academic research that happens converts the problem statement into some sort of application in these organizations. And that becomes the benchmark that this is something that all of us have to achieve. Now, for example, all of you must remember that there was a trend that flourished very well on Facebook, where Facebook asked you purposely to put up your pictures of 20 years back or 10 years back along with your pictures of the current day. This was a trend which went viral during pandemic or just before pandemic, just a couple of years back. What was the purpose of this trend? The purpose was to give appropriate amount of data to the machine learning algorithms with respect to the computer vision concepts to understand the journey of humans with respect to face transformations. Now, a lot of academicians were involved in that to primarily define the hypothesis. The organization or the industries were collaborating with the academics with respect to data collection and then validating those hypotheses. So it's always the combination between academics and industry that gives rise to a more robust algorithm, a more robust software, a more robust system, a more robust technique. Now you'll see a lot of natural language processing packages being coming out of these organizations. Why? Because they have the data sets. But then where are the underlying principles coming from? That's from academics. A lot of professors from academia are building those kind of frameworks that is required to give rise to the robust systems. So academics is getting The frameworks, industry is validating those frameworks with respect to data sets, and in combinations, we are seeing the trends being come up by the companies in the form of packages or systems that are emerging. So that's the combination that's going on. I hope that answers.
One last question maybe, and I'm a big one for gender diversity, so maybe another one of the ladies over there or there.
Good afternoon. My name is Alec Kozati. My question to the panelist is, like, there is a huge source of data, like used to get collected from a huge source. And my question is how the industry compile those data and try to find for the perfect solution, or like, that's all.
Aggregation.
So you are saying that there is a plethora of data, and how do we use it, right? If I understand the question correctly.
There is a pool of data out there,
Yeah.
and the industry used to collect them.
Yeah.
And to find the solution from a particular problem, how do they compile from that huge data?
Okay. So we'll come to data later. To use the data, you should know why do you need it. And for that, you should be extremely clear about your business problem. And then when you know that what my clients want, and this is the problem I'm going to solve, then you go ahead and identify the right data, the variables which will address the problem. Right? I may not use all the data which is there. Maybe I have in the data, let's say, lakhs of variables. Out of lakhs of variables, maybe 100 variables are applicable to solve that particular problem. So the next step will be zero down what is needed. Okay, so the first critical part is you understand what you want to do. Second, what is the data relevant to solve that problem? And the third is how to do it. So if I have lakhs of variables, and just 5 months of data, 5 years of data, income. I have 5 years of data, there are a lot of using data. Okay, that's not clear. I need to do all that cleaning aspect of it. I'm ready to use it. So that's the next step. And then of course it followed by modeling processes and then the insight and the storytelling. But you have to really very clear that what you need, why do you need the data, and that will, because in real life you can't use all that data. You should not use all the data. You should very cleverly zero down that, hey, out of this I need this data, and that's not easy. That's really not easy, because to understand a business problem in the first go, it doesn't happen. It really doesn't happen. It takes huge amount of time to understand a business problem. I have situations where 50% project is over and my team didn't understand what my clients want. So it's a tricky job to get the data collected and use it, but that's the most fundamental job. If this step is not done, all further steps are damaging.
So I just would like to add. So I would just like to add, as the data grows, so is the capability of the systems and the tools and technologies to process the data. That has also become equally, it has also progressed at the same pace. So, I thought that should be a clear answer. So in case you have tons of data, petabytes or even beyond that, either as one-time data or even in real time, we should be able to process it, because there are those kind of tools and technologies in place. A good example, for example, if you saw a live cricket match, say 10 years ago, the kind of analytics in real time that you were seeing versus what you are able to see today, you could see the transformation that has happened. And it is also because there is that amount of data that is getting generated in real time, and it is also getting processed in real time. So as you as the industry or what people consume, so would be the capability of the tools provider and the platform providers to match the same thing.
So thanks for that, Ravi. I guess you've been a wonderful audience, and I'd like to thank you for that. And I'd like to thank the panel for taking time out and spending time and sharing their insights about business, about analytics, about the brave new world out there. One message that I'll leave behind with you is that don't just look to be employable. That is an important thing to have. But be ready to be deployable. Move into an organization, don't just be employable by them, be deployable. Be future ready, be plug and play. That's it. Thank you so much.
I request all the guests to please be seated. Thank you, sir. And I would also like to thank all our panelists for this very insightful session by covering all the aspects of today's panel's discussion and also giving us the valuable time from the busy schedule and inspiring us with the valuable words. I would now like to request Dr. S.K. Mahapatra, sir, and Dr. Sumita Mishra, ma'am, for the felicitation of our guest.
Start in no particular order.
Thank you so much for reminding me. Oh, yes, I did. I did.
I would now like to request Dr. Shumita Mishra ma'am to propose the vote of thanks. Yes, sir.
Good afternoon to all of you. And I know that I'm standing between your lunch and the rest of the day, so I'll try to make it as brief as possible. The inaugural addresses and the two panel discussions have put the spotlight on the spectrum of this exciting discipline called analytics. The first panel, moderated by Mr. Aditya Khandekar, brought out a set of diverse and yet insightful perspectives on the differences and the confluence between IT and analytics. I express my deep gratitude to the panelists, Mr. V. Ganapati, Mr. Ramesh Saketi, Mr. Partha Mohanty, Madam Krishma Singla, and the moderator, Mr. Aditya Khandekar. The second panel, moderated by Mr. Gaurav Chawla, focused on the demand and supply gap between the academia and the analytics industry. I thank Dr. Rajan Gupta, Mr. Rupesh Khare, Mr. Vivek Tomar, Mr. Ravi Dixit, and the moderator, Mr. Gaurav Chawla. The insights from both the panels, I'm sure, are of great use to faculties and students alike, and I look forward to exciting interactions between students and our experts in smaller workshops in the second half of the day. Thank you all. Thank you so much.